What's up, guys? Dave here, and right now we're going to be doing an analysis of Hamlet's Act 1, Scene 4. So Act 1, Scene 4 is a major turning point in the play. Up until this point, the last three scenes have pretty much set up the foundation for the rest of the play, but none of the story arcs have really crossed over yet. I mean, we do know about the story arc with the ghost, and we also know about this other story arc with Claudius, Gertrude, and Hamlet, and of course, that introduced the Norway subplot as well, concerning Fortinbras and Norway, and then we were also introduced to Polonius, Laertes, and Ophelia. But while some of these characters may be interacting a little bit, none of their paths have really collided in any sort of really dramatic way yet, until this scene. So we will be covering another essay type question in this scene, and if that does help you, or if the lesson helps you overall, let us know how we're doing. Maybe comment, like, share it around here or there, but without further ado, let's get started. So, remember at the end of Act 1, Scene 2, when Horatio, Marcellus, and Barnardo met with Hamlet to tell him all about the ghost? Well, here they are, waiting around for the ghost again, while Claudius is throwing a really loud drinking party for himself. Well, that's already a good point for discussion, because if you watched our Act 1 Scene 2 analysis, we talked about how Claudius actually used the issue of Fortinbras's imminent attack on Denmark to draw the court's attention away from the issue of his illegal marriage to Gertrude. I mean, it wouldn't be unreasonable for someone to say, hey, I thought we were under attack and preparing for war, and yet here you are drinking and partying, Claudius? I mean, are you celebrating your promotion to becoming king, or are you actually celebrating your illegal marriage to Gertrude? Or are you just addicted to drinking and partying? I mean, where are your priorities at? So, it gives us some reasonable grounds to doubt Claudius's character, and almost as if it's in response to this, Hamlet actually explains to Horatio that not only is heavy drinking and partying a part of Denmark's culture and traditions, but he also explains that he actually despises this part of Denmark's tradition. He says, "This heavy-handed revel, east and west, makes us traduced and taxed of other nations. They cleap us, drunkards, and with swinish phrase, soil our addition, and indeed, it takes from our achievements, though performed at height, the pith and marrow of our attribute." What? So if you're anything like me at all, you have no idea what that meant. So let's break this down into something a little more digestible. This drunken partying makes other countries east and west look down on us. They call us alcoholics, and as if they're talking about pigs, they tarnish our attributes. And of course, that cancels out the very core of our achievements, even though those achievements are actually pretty great. So just a quick tip, if you're trying to untangle, interpret, translate, or just understand what the heck Shakespeare's actually talking about, Google is actually a pretty good solution. For me, once I found out what traduced, revel, and swinish actually meant, I was able to get a pretty basic understanding, at least my interpretation, of what I thought he was saying. But anyway, this one quote shows us that Hamlet doesn't necessarily dislike drinking and partying just because the one happening in the background is really loud and obnoxious. It actually can be argued, based on the quote, that Hamlet doesn't like this drinking because it gives Denmark a bad reputation, and so it shows us that he actually cares about Denmark's reputation. And then to finish off this monologue, Hamlet says, "The form of plausive manners, that these men carrying, I say, the stamp of one defect being nature's livery or fortune's star, his virtues else, be they as pure as grace, as infinite as man may undergo, shall in the general censure take corruption from that particular fault." Wait, what? People, even if they have one single defect, whether they've had that defect from birth or they just got unlucky, even if they're otherwise completely perfect in every other sense, will be seen as defective because of that one defect. Again, this is just my interpretation. There are obviously many ways to interpret and understand this quote, but let's just consider it valid for a second. So it could mean that Hamlet's saying that if a blank piece of paper had a black dot in the middle, then it's no longer considered perfect. One mistake, one problem, one single defect is enough to consider something imperfect. Now, given that this interpretation is valid, that sets up some really interesting potential double meaning. So if indeed Hamlet is making this point, then the first and more obvious meaning is that Hamlet's saying drinking is the defect of Denmark. But maybe, and here's the second and more hidden meaning, maybe Hamlet's actually saying that Claudius is the defect of Denmark. And so an essay-like question might ask you to prove or disprove this point by asking you something like, does this scene motivate Hamlet's hate for Claudius? Use evidence to support your argument. And we've actually already covered some decent arguments to support the claim that this scene does motivate Hamlet's hate for Claudius. So we could say that Hamlet is this truly dedicated and noble Danishman who actually cares about his country's well-being, because he evidently shows hate for the way that drinking and partying bring down Denmark's reputation. And on the other hand, we've got Claudius, whose drinking and partying, not only are they completely irresponsible, because if you think about it, his country's on the verge of war and they could be attacked on that very night, and he's off drinking and partying, but he's actually doing the very thing that, according to Hamlet, is bringing down Denmark's reputation. And so we could also say that Hamlet's monologue from lines 33 to 39 approximately is actually a metaphor, saying that Claudius is the defect of Denmark. Therefore, this scene does motivate Hamlet's hate for Claudius. Am I right? And again, these arguments may be weak. They might be easily countered by some counter-argument. But remember, it's up to you when you're writing your essay or assignment to try and poke holes in your argument to see if there's a better position out there. Anyways, let's move on with the rest of the scene. So, the ghost appears, and Hamlet nearly immediately begins to talk to it. Not only does he call it Hamlet, which was his father's name, he also calls it King, Father, and even Royal Dane. Now remember in Act 1, Scene 1, Horatio actually had to be told or requested by Marcellus and Bernardo to speak to the ghost. We can already see that Hamlet's got a completely different attitude towards it. He begins to question and asking question after question until the ghost simply gives him this gesture that says, "Follow me." And Hamlet actually tries to chase after this ghost. So Marcellus, Horatio, and Bernardo, they try to hold back Hamlet from chasing after this ghost, and Horatio actually has this really nice dialogue where he tries to convince Hamlet that it might not be the best idea to follow this ghost. He says that the ghost might deprive your sovereignty of reason and draw you into madness. Basically, Horatio's just trying to warn Hamlet that by chasing the ghost, he could go crazy. And keep this in mind as you read through the rest of the play, because the issue of whether or not Hamlet is crazy or just acting crazy, it's actually a really hotly debated topic in Hamlet, and it's probably one of those things that's likely to show up on a final exam or assignment. Okay guys, so that's it for Hamlet's Act 1 Scene 4 analysis. Now, if the lesson helped you, if the essay question helped you, please share it with your classmates. And also, if you do have an argument for why this scene did not motivate Hamlet's hate for Claudius, leave it in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Finally, don't forget to subscribe because we're going to be coming out with more videos like this. Calculus, chemistry, physics, and maybe even, depending on the number of likes and comments, we could be doing English literature novels as well. So, we'll see you guys in Act 1, Scene 5.